Hey friends, and welcome back to this episode. Last week we talked about the aftermath of betrayal, like what you could expect typically in the first season or the first stage of betrayal. It's a great video. I would recommend going back and watching that before watching this one. This week we're going to talk about 3 effective ways of managing emotional triggers. Now there's many other ways, and these are just 3 that we want to share today.
Yeah, are you walking through betrayal right now and experiencing triggers that make you feel out of control and unable to manage the emotional experience that's going on for you? I know that happened to me like pretty soon after discovery. I started to experience if I left the house, I would lose control over my emotions by just seeing someone. Or even just a thought that I had could trigger myself. It didn't actually have to come from out here.
Did you find it hard to regulate those emotions when you
So
would get
difficult.
triggered?
So difficult. And it's the first time that I've ever experienced something like that. And so it was very confusing for me. I wanted to be close to you and I wanted distance from you. And
Both.
I could see your pain and I was angry at you for betraying me. So it was a lot of like confusion in the midst of that.
I'm curious, did you know what you were experiencing? Did you know that these were triggers?
No, and in fact, we talked about this last week in our video, so go and watch that one.
Yeah.
But I learned that what I was actually walking through was grief. And when I was experiencing really strong emotions by thinking something or seeing something, that I was actually experiencing triggers. And our counselor helped me understand, what that was like. Because it's really uncharted waters. You don't know when they're going to show up. I could anticipate, like once I was kind of used to them coming, I could anticipate where I would get triggered at or what sort of things would trigger me.
Yeah.
And I would do everything I could to avoid going and doing those things.
Being at a location,
Yes.
that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I think the triggers can be all kinds of different things. Some of the ones you've experienced has been going in public places, specifically where you can't control what females wear,
Right.
what they choose to wear, especially during hot summer months.
Right.
And so it could be at the mall or at the beach or at the pool. Those could be triggers. It could be at a particular location, a particular song that you hear on the radio. It could be, you watch your spouse having an action that reminds you of something, maybe like hiding their phone or. So why is it important to manage emotional triggers?
Yeah. So I started to recognize that when these triggers would show up, it was making me feel like I was back in the betrayal all over again. It just started and it was just as strong every single time. Yeah, I think it's important to realize that the thoughts and the emotions that I'm having are actually from a past experience that feels like it's happening all over again.
Yeah. Did you know that your mind doesn't know the difference between thought and reality?
Like, really let that sink in. My mind does not know the difference if he betrays me right now or if I'm thinking about him betraying me from the past.
Your emotions, the things going on internally in your body is going to be similar or the same.
Right.
It will be intense until you start working through those. And it does lessen over time as you actively work through it without resisting it.
Right. And I think that's a key of just not resisting the triggers, because when I was resisting them, man, it made them compound even more. Like it felt like this internal war against these triggers. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. Get it out of my mind,
Yeah, I'm sure you've probably experienced that pushing away of that feeling. I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to feel depression. And the more you push it away, the more you feel that exact same way.
Yeah. We actually did a video about how triggers are linked to the past. And so we'll put a link here. And you can go watch that video if you want to know more about the root of the triggers you're experiencing. But what we want to share with you today is 3 simple ways that you can go about coping with these triggers to start to have more awareness and control over how they come out and how they impact your life and others around you.
So the first one is self-awareness. For me, I had PTSD for 10, 12 years, and I spent most of that not in self-awareness. I would go through a trigger and it would take me out, and I didn't know how to process it. I would resist the feelings that I had. And I think that's why it lasted for that long.
Yeah, I think you get trapped in your mind that is stuck in the past.
It was.
And it's just on replay. And so
Over and over.
Yeah.
You're right. I kept experiencing the same trauma for years.
Yeah.
Over and over and over, and I just could not get aware of it. I think this video is going to be great to be able to get the awareness of, hey, there's triggers that I'm experiencing.
Yes.
It's not that the betrayer is doing it again.
Right. And that's what you really want to have awareness around is, oh, I'm being triggered right now. And it has to do with discovery, which was in the past, or whatever it is that you're dealing with, and work through that. And that's noticing the thoughts and the emotions that are there right before you experience that trigger. Because if you can start to have awareness around the thoughts that take you down the path that you don't want to go, then you're actually able to not fall into the trigger. And that took a lot of practice for me. But in the Bible, it talks about capture every thought and make it obedient to Christ. Yeah. And that's what that is. It's, okay, I'm having a thought and it's about the betrayal, or it's a visual that I'm experiencing. Stop it in its tracks. Like, don't let it keep going. You actually have the ability to stop your thoughts. And that's capturing it. And then I'm looking at it. And if you saw the video from several weeks ago where I talked about God is on one side and Satan is on the other side, as I have that captured thought, I'm looking at, is this thought taking me closer to God and Travis, or closer to Satan and division? And I could see every time, this is taking me towards Satan and division, and I can choose to not think about that. And so I would release the thought, and the way that feels internally is I don't resist it. I just allow it to be there. That's right. And then I let it like passes through.
Yes.
Because our thoughts and emotions are only meant to be in our body for seconds at a time and pass through. But they get trapped in there. They get trapped in our mind and trapped in our body. And then it's on replay every single time you have that same thought.
Yeah, it's the thoughts that we give significance to,
right,
that remain.
Good point.
But like the other day, I had a thought, I need to cut the grass.
Yeah.
It didn't stick around.
Right. You didn't give significance to, I'm going to cut the grass.
Yes. But here's something that, as you were talking, I thought this would be very valuable for you, is when we have a thought, there's this loop that can happen. It's called a thought, feeling, behavior loop. So when we have a thought, it leads to a feeling and will lead to a behavior. And if we don't interrupt that, sometimes our behaviors, the words we say and the actions we do, we regret. Mm-hmm. If we don't capture that thought and identify it as that's a lie from Satan,
right,
then it's going to go to a feeling and it's going to go to a behavior loop. It's a loop.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've experienced this, but it turns the volume up the more significance we give it. Like it will turn that volume up and make me more miserable.
Yeah, and what that looks like in real life is if I'm having a visual like trigger of betrayal, what ultimately, it's not that's painful. It's where it takes me that's so painful. And that is that I'm abandoned, I'm alone, I'm not loved, I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough. Right. That is where I'm headed when I allow these thoughts and emotions to continue down that path. And that is the lie from the enemy, that he's using a visual or a thought to take you off track. And it is so prevalent right after betrayal, and it is tough. It is the most spiritual warfare I have ever been through. And it takes a lot of energy to get through triggers, and it also takes a lot of awareness of knowing I'm under attack right now. This is a spiritual attack as much as it is a physical and emotional attack. So the more awareness that you can have, the more you can start to capture that thought, make it obedient to Christ and let it go.
So number 2 is coping techniques. You're important. Your heart's important. Healing for yourself is important. And so here are just a couple ways that you can take care of yourself. Number 1 is your vertical relationship with God, with Christ. You've got to have that vertical relationship. He has to be the one to pour into you. You're whole and complete through Him, not other people. And so it'd be reaching out to Him for comfort and strength.
That was huge for me. And what I also had to recognize was God was getting my attention just as much as His attention. And I could have looked at it like God is there for me to get this comfort and this love from, which He's there for, but also a healing and a growth. Like, what are you wanting to do in me that you would have me go through this? Because He doesn't just allow circumstances like this to happen without something for our good on the other side, but it has a lot to do with how I show up.
It does.
So that was huge. Really, God wants you to come running to Him. Another way is by grounding yourself in what is true. What is reality? And so what that looks like, if I'm having a thought that's making me feel like you're betraying me right now, which, by the way, even 5 years out, a trigger can still make me feel now like you're betraying me. So it continues to happen like that. But what I have found is that when I ground myself in reality of right now, we have an awesome relationship. You are not betraying me. This is an attack from the enemy. Okay, I got this. It's grounding myself in what is reality. And that is so helpful.
That's good. Next is breathing. Being able to take deep breaths in your nose, out your mouth. It'll reset your autonomic nervous system. It will calm you down. It turns off the sympathetic nervous system, turns on the parasympathetic nervous system. That allows you to start healing your body. It removes you from fight or flight. Here's an easy technique. We call it box breathing. Many people teach it in special forces. It really helps to calm down in a fast method.
Let's do it.
All right. Do it with us. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds. Wait for 4 seconds. Breathe in.
I already feel
Do you?
nice and calm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it lowers the heart rate, the blood pressure, all the things that the triggers raise. Good.
Very effective.
Another technique that I found to be very healing is journaling, praying, and worshiping. I found myself a lot just on the floor worshiping and crying and allowing myself to process the pain that was there in His presence. There's a difference in trying to cope and work through it on my own versus having God on my side helping me through this. So.
Yeah, one thing that comes to me when you're saying that is anytime you're getting things out, it could be writing it out, it could be speaking to a trusted friend, mentor, or counselor. But when you're getting things from darkness to the light, there's healing in it. It loses value.
It does.
Whatever significance you give, whatever that is, it will lose its value when you get it out.
Right.
It is absolutely healing. And I love how you say when you're doing it with God, it's even more healing. He is there to help you walk through this. He wants you to lean on Him.
You may also want to engage in your hobbies. One of my hobbies is taking care of plants, and it's very therapeutic for me. And so you may have a hobby that resets you, that fills you up, and that would be a really great technique to help you cope with triggers.
And then lastly, there's support. You're going to want to get support. You can't do this alone. Mm-hmm. You need God. You need people around you, that love Jesus, that are for your marriage. You want to be in a group of the same sex, not support from the opposite sex.
Yeah. And sometimes that looks like professional help as well. We went with professional help, and it was amazing, helping us walk through that. And so that may be a step that you want to take as well.
Number 3 is having great open communication between the spouses about the triggers. You know, we did a video recently, and we'll link it up there, where we talk about how to communicate in betrayal.
Yes. So at first, I was terrified to share with you that I was experiencing a trigger, but I was giving significance to the fact that I'm not strong enough to do this.
Oh, interesting.
It felt shameful. It felt like, I can't even really put words to it, but it felt like I'm not enough if I'm having to share my trigger with you, which would compound the trigger because I'm not enough.
Oh, was that lies you had in your head? The lies you had in your head made you think that if you shared, you would not be enough.
Right. Like, you don't want to hear what I'm going through. You don't care anyways. If you cared, you wouldn't have done this in the first place, which would make me want to isolate from you during triggers. And also, I would experience this raging anger that would come over me that I'd never experienced. And so, you being around, I would just need space from you. But then,
During the time when you're triggered.
while I was triggered.
Yeah.
And I know you probably can remember several of those instances where I was losing my mind. It felt like I was beyond myself.
I felt
And
helpless in that too.
you were just so comforting during that time because I felt like you were going to judge me and I felt like it wasn't safe for me to open up. But when I started to open up to him, I started to see he understood it more, which allowed him to give me more support. And so I would share with him, this is what I was thinking that made me feel this way. And you would just listen and allow me to work through that because there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like you can say, I'll take your triggers away. It's already done. And so when a spouse can come alongside the other spouse that is experiencing triggers, it is so supportive and creates an environment of understanding and connection even. We were building intimacy over triggers.
Yeah.
And trust.
You can build intimacy
We were
over
building
all
trust.
kinds of tough circumstances.
Yeah. So open communication is just so important to the healing process. It will help release a lot of the things that are in there that need to come out. And we just encourage you as a couple to foster that kind of environment for each other.
I just want to throw a caveat out there. You do need emotional safety to be able to have that communication. I'll link a video for that.
Yeah, good idea. Emotional safety is really important because if he's going to tell me I just need to get over whatever it is, or this is like the 1,000th time you are feeling this way. And I remember feeling that way with you with PTSD, like again,
Right.
again, when is this ever going to end? It really felt that way, but I also wasn't supportive. You weren't aware. There were a lot of unhealthy aspects. But when you have a couple who is designing a healthy way of walking through betrayal, which is really what our channel is all about, is helping you walk through this in a healthy way. Wow, we see couples heal really fast from betrayal, and it's a lasting healing. It's not a Band-Aid. You know, it is a real lasting healing that we see happen. So as we close this video, I just want to reiterate that what you're experiencing in triggers is normal. There is no like guidebook that says this is exactly what you experience when you're having a trigger from betrayal. They're all over the place on every spectrum. There's a wide range. And so you may have something, a coping technique or a way of managing through triggers that we didn't mention.
Yes.
We would love for you to put that in the comments and share with our community. How have you worked through your triggers and what are some different techniques that you can share with our community here?
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for putting those in the comments.
Yeah, where our community is building and we are seeing you guys lift each other up in prayer and through comments and
Thank you.
commenting on each other's comments. And so we know that you're reading them and it really means a lot to us, but I know it also means so much to the individual that's showing up or the couple that's showing up to our channel for the first time. And they see, wow, other people are seeing things for themselves. It's going to have them looking for that as well. So thank you so much for that support. It really does support our ministry.
Yeah. All right, so Adele, we're going to recap. Number 1 is being self-aware. Number 2, having good coping techniques. Number 3, having great, effective, open communication with your spouse. And you're normal.
Yes.
You're normal.
Yes. I encourage you, choose one of the three to work on today. What is one of those that you can really take on and try it on like a hat? You know, our way is not the only way, but you can try these techniques on like a hat where, is this going to work for me? And if it doesn't, take it off, try something different. Just don't stop seeking after your healing because you are worth it and you deserve the healing that God has available for you.
Thanks for watching this episode with us.
Bye.
Bye.
Did you ever do that as a kid?
Yes.
Talking to the fan and it
Yes.
makes your
Do it another
voice
way.
sound funny.
Turn around. Don't do it.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. Last week, we talked about non-emotional triggers.
Aftermath.
Last week, we talked about the aftermath of betrayal.
Yes.
I'm going to start that over. Okay. So the first one is self-awareness. You know, okay, I'm ready. What is walking up our wall?
Where?
It's like a miniature snake. I don't want to get it.
No. Go for it.
You gotta,
Yeah, here.
This is centipede. I think he'll do good outside. I didn't mean to scream. I don't know why it scared me. Come on, buddy. It's moving around.
It's not a pretend facade in a
Not do it.
couple.
I was picking my nose, not do it.
Oh.
It's not a pretend.
It's
facade.
not a pretend facade, you know.
I was still talking.
Okay.